Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video I'm going to show you how to swap out a graphics card. Now, you'd think this is a pretty simple thing, but there are some steps along the way which can be a little bit of a gotcha, and from the responses we get on our Discord, I think there are a few people that are struggling with this, so this is why this video exists. So potentially if you've gone to our Discord and you've got problems with your system not displaying a video output, then potentially we'll pushed you over in this direction. So in this particular video, we're going to be taking our Intel Arc B580 12GB graphics card, which is in the PC behind me, and we're going to be removing all the software. We're also then going to be using DDU to actually clear out all of the drivers for all graphics cards that are possibly in the system. Then we're going to be installing our new Radeon RX 6800 16GB, and then we're going to be installing the drivers and then doing a test to make sure that everything works as it should do. So with all that said, let's get into it and get started. Okay, so I should preface this with, obviously, depending on what graphics card you're going from and you're going to, then potentially you may have to do slightly different steps. So if you're going from Nvidia to AMD or AMD to Nvidia, Intel to Nvidia, etc., etc., just insert the right drivers for your particular needs as you go along. So the first thing we're going to want to do, because this is a system which has already been installed and is working, we've already installed the drivers for the Intel Arc graphics card. And there's probably going to be some programs running down here. Yeah, there we go. So we've got the Intel graphics software. So the first thing we can do to make sure that this goes smoothly is to just try and manually remove the drivers anyway to begin with. So if we go into the settings section, we go into apps and go into installed apps. Then what we can do is just have a look through here for anything which is related to the Intel graphics. Now obviously if you're removing an AMD graphics card, you can remove the AMD graphics drivers. If it's an Nvidia, you can remove the Nvidia drivers. Those steps should be quite straightforward, but again, as we've said earlier, if you want to, head over to our Discord and we'll try and guide you through the process if for some reason you're getting stuck. So in this instance, we've got the Intel graphics software and drivers. So we'll go ahead and we'll uninstall that one. And you'll get the user account control, so we'll just agree to that. And it'll start the uninstaller. In this particular instance, the Intel graphics installer and uninstaller should also pick up the fact that there's other software installed. So hopefully it's going to give us an option to remove those as well. So as you can see in this particular instance, and you'll probably find the same with Nvidia and also for AMD, it says here, select the components you wish to uninstall. So we want to get rid of all of this because we don't need any of that. If you've got an Intel motherboard and you are using Intel's driver support assistant, obviously you can leave that. So do have a little read through. Don't just go clicking uninstall randomly because there may be some things that you need. Potentially you can install those again after, should you want to. The Intel driver support assistant isn't great, so I'm going to get rid of that anyway, but it was installed as a default with the Intel graphics. So let's click on uninstall and we'll get rid of everything. Now with this, you do get a warning at the bottom saying, warning, your display may flicker during this process. And don't worry, it's completely normal because what it's going to try and do is remove the Intel driver and then it's going to substitute it with probably the Microsoft default display adapter. So potentially your resolution may change, the screen might go blank a couple of times, but don't worry about it, just let it go through and do its thing. Okay, so we've come to the end and it says here that all the items have been removed, so that is excellent, that's what we want. Now in this particular instance, it's going to ask us if we want to restart now. Now we don't really want to restart now because if we do restart, if the internet is still connected, it will try and actually just re-download the drivers. So let's not do that, let's just click on quit. And what we're going to do is actually go over onto the internet before we do our restart. And we're going to just go to Google or your search engine of choice and just type in DDU. And you can get it from guru3d.com. That would be the best place to get it from, in my opinion, or potentially go to Wagnardsoft. I generally like to use Guru3D, but choose whichever you like. You have to agree to cookies, etc. And then you can download the latest version. There's mirrors available for the EU and the USA, so just choose whichever one is appropriate for your local region. And we'll download the Display Driver Uninstaller, or DDU. So that's done. It's a zip file. And what we want to do is go into our downloads folder. And what we want to do now is to unzip the file because it is actually a compressed file. So we'll do extract all. and choose the default location, and that will give us another folder. So now we've got the DDU, which is the display driver uninstaller, and if we double click on this one, it will do another extraction, and now we've got our folder with DDU inside it. So if we open up the folder, and you'll see inside it you've got display driver uninstaller. Now this part is very important. Make sure you right click on it and choose run as administrator. That will give the program administrator rights to delve a little bit deeper into your system, to remove subsequent drivers, older drivers, and all those kind of INI files. So we'll choose run as administrator, and you'll get the user account control come up. So we'll click on yes, and we can close down all of the rest of these windows now. We don't need any of that. And now we've got the DDU installer, or uninstaller rather. So you get some information there saying about this is the first time you've launched it, etc. And just read through those. Obviously, if you can make a backup, ideally do it. It's not that important, but potentially there could be data loss if something goes wrong. So just a quick heads up on that one. So we'll click on OK for that, and then you get some general options. So these you can pretty much leave exactly as they are. I wouldn't really change that at all, just leave it as it is. The default settings are absolutely fine. So we can click on close there, and it says that DDU has detected that you're not in safe mode. Now this does work better in safe mode if you can do that, but it isn't entirely necessary. So we'll click on OK, and now we can take a look at the display driver uninstaller options. So you've got some options here that are grayed out currently because we haven't made any selections. So this is where we select what we want to remove. So we want to remove a GPU, or graphics processing unit, or graphics card. So we're going to click on that one, and it's detected we've got Intel graphics already, so that is coming up already. My suggestion would be, if you can, go through all of them, or just choose all GPUs. So this is going to remove all GPU drivers from the system entirely. Now, if you are using integrated onboard graphics as well, so maybe you're a content creator and you're using maybe an Intel processor and you're using the onboard GPU to assist with your video editing, you may want to actually leave that part or leave the driver on. It's a little bit confusing these days with the modern systems where potentially you can have two graphics cards installed at the same time, one on your processor, one in your physical machine. So ideally go for all GPUs and just clean out everything, and then you can reinstall what you need after that is done. So we're going to choose all GPUs as we've done there. And then these sections here will now be illuminated. So you've got the option for clean and restart, clean and do not restart, clean and shut down, and clean shader cache only. Now in this instance, really just choose whichever is going to be best for you. For most people, it's going to be clean and shut down. So that way it's going to remove all the drivers, then it's going to turn the computer off so you can physically remove your graphics card and physically install the new one, which is what we're planning to do. So in this instance, we're going to choose clean and shut down. So click on that one. It will create a system restore point if you've got system restore enabled on your system, or at least it will try to. So just go ahead, let it do its thing. There is a log section just here. So if you want to, you can kind of watch along to see what progress is happening, what drivers are being removed, and it's going to go through, look for GPUs, see what it's found, and basically start the cleanup. So just be patient. What we're waiting for now is for that to completely finish and for the system to completely shut down. And there we go, Windows is now shutting down. So now we can get on to the next part, physically removing and physically installing our other graphics card. Okay, so here is our computer. There's our Intel graphics card, and this is the one we want to remove. So first of all, we'll start off with removing the power connection cables. So with these PCIe ones, generally, if we take a look at this other one, there's a latch which actually holds it in place. Very similar if you've got the PCI Express Gen 5 ones. So what you're going to want to do is to press in that release latch and then wiggle the connector out of the actual graphics card. So let me try and do that and still give you some kind of view. So for us, the latch is actually underneath on this particular setup. So we're going to push that in, firmly grab the cable, and just with a little wiggle, gentle wiggle, you should feel it starting to come out, and then it will release from the graphics card. Now, if your graphics card has more than one, obviously repeat the process for as many connections as you've physically got. Next, we're going to move to the rear of the machine, or the side potentially, depending on what your setup is. So in this particular case, we've got an additional bracket on the back here, which actually covers up some of our PCI Express mountings. So in this instance, these are thumb screws, so we can undo these by hand. Potentially, you may want a screwdriver. Generally, a Phillips PH2 is the optimal tool for the job. But like I said, in this one, it's just going to be thumb screws. So we can loosen those off. If you've got one of these which is loose, just hold on to it so it doesn't fall off like that. So put those to one side, and now I'll give you a slightly better angle of the screws in the side of the graphics card. So if we take a line from our graphics card along to the PCI Express at the back, you can see here quite easily, because it is a slightly different color, that we need to remove 2 screws. So these are in a little bit tighter, so we'll use the screwdriver to remove those. And put those to one side, because we'll be reusing those very shortly. Now potentially, depending on your graphics card, sometimes you may find that the screw actually underneath there will still be holding the graphics card in place. Now if you give it a very slight wiggle, you should see if that screw is going to need to be removed or not. In this instance, I think we're probably going to be okay. It looks like there's clearance, but if there's any doubt, you can always just undo the screw underneath, and there will be a blanking plate, which you can see has just fallen out. So we'll take that out just to give us a little bit more wiggle room, and to make sure that nothing else is going to trap the graphics card from being removed. So for the next bit, to physically remove the graphics card, now depending on your motherboard, you may have multiple options on how to release the PCI Express clamp, which actually holds in the leg at the back of the graphics card. So let me show you a graphics card and show you what the leg looks like. So if we look at this GPU here, this is the leg at the back here. You can see there's a little indent. Hopefully you can just about make that out. I'll try and zoom it in for you. But that leg, there's a clamp which kind of rests inside of there. So if you try to remove it with the leg engaged, it locks it into place. So normally it needs to be pushed out of the way so the graphics card can be removed. This particular motherboard is a slightly older one and has the traditional style mounting, but potentially with some modern motherboards, you may find on the side of the motherboard there's a button to press, or some kind of lever which will release the latch. Obviously with this, it's probably going to be beneficial to take a look at your owner's manual for your motherboard. Again, as with all of the instructions in this tutorial, if there's anything you're getting stuck on or not sure of, please do reach out to us in the comments section, or alternatively, for a faster response, head over to our Discord, and ideally, if you can, post a picture of the area of the part you're getting problems with. Now I'm actually going to do something which I would strongly recommend against doing, and that is using a screwdriver. So with a flat-headed screwdriver, ideally you want something like a plastic ruler. Now to get to the actual release mechanism at the back, generally you can just push it in, but obviously with a metal screwdriver, if for some reason you slip, there is potential that you could damage the motherboard components behind it. So in this instance, I'm going to use this because this is my motherboard, and if I break it, that's on me. But I would strongly suggest to anybody watching this, if you can, please do try and find a long plastic piece which you can actually push the mechanism in with, so you don't damage any components. I'll show you what the actual catch looks like when the graphics card is removed. So we're just going to push the latch in. Hopefully we can just about get to it. And that looks like it's been released. So when the latch is released, if you just grab the graphics card firmly, top and bottom, and you should be able to just wiggle it out of the slot and remove it from the actual motherboard. So that came out pretty easily, pretty happy with that. So now hopefully we've got enough light on it so you can see the PCI Express graphics card slot, and here is our release mechanism. So this just goes into 2 positions, up or down. So when the graphics card is pushed in, this latch will flip up and lock into place. So what you'd need to do is to press something against this lever side here and just push it down. So then that opens up the mechanism so the graphics card can be released. Again, if it's tight to get to, you may need to use something longer. Sometimes you can just get your finger in there and just push it, which is the probably the optimal way of doing it. So just slightly above the graphics card. It's hard for me to show in this particular setup, so hopefully this all makes sense, but there you go, there's a different angle. So you can see how that mechanism actually works. Now for us now, because we're going to be installing a new graphics card, we want to leave this in the unlocked position, so push down. Again, if you've got a motherboard with some sort of button or latch, you may not need to do this at all, but if you've got this style of connection, then leave it in the downward or open position so we can reinsert our graphics card. So with our graphics card, this is the one which is going back in. Now this is what is known as a 2-slot or 2.5 slot. The card itself underhangs, so it's 2.5 slots deep, but the actual PCI Express bracket, as you can see, denoted by the 2 tags on the end there, so this requires 2 slots. If your graphics card has only 1, you can put in another PCI Express blanking plate after, or if this has got 3, you may need to remove that additional PCI Express blanking plate underneath the ones you've already taken out. So this effectively is a like for like, so a 2-slot versus a 2-slot. So let me show you the old card so you can make sense of that. So that is the old card. As you can see, this one is basically a 2-slot graphics card, doesn't overhang, and we do have those 2 lugs on the back there, denoting this is a dual slot card. This one also only has 1 PCI Express 8-pin power selection, whereas our new graphics card actually has a requirement for 2. So at this point, potentially you might find it easier to actually pull through any additional cables you may need from your power supply through the bottom of your case now, whilst the graphics card is removed. So that way it's going to be easier to get to, because if you've got a big chunky graphics card here, you may not be able to get your hands in to actually pull cables through if you're pulling through from behind. Some motherboards you may find have a cutout towards this front area where you can pass your cables through, in which case that makes life a little bit easier. But certainly I would recommend getting your PCI Express additional cables from your power supply ready and waiting now, just to make life a little bit easier later on down the line. So in this section now, we're ready to put our graphics card in. So what we're aiming to do is, if we take a look at our graphics card, there is our PCI Express slot here, which is going to end up going into our PCI Express slot here, which we've just taken out from. And also we want to line up the tags at the back there with our PCI Express blanking plates. So again, basically the same as removal. So with the hand, support the graphics card. Potentially you might find this easier to do if you lean the PC downward. So depending on your dexterity, for me it's a little bit hard to film that, so I'm going to go with it this way. Also, sometimes you may find it's a little bit hard to get these tags on the side actually into some cases, so you may need to readjust a couple of times. So I'm going to line up the PCI Express slot and the tags on the back, and just a gentle push and you should find it clips into place. Now in this instance it's held in very nicely, but potentially for you, you may need to get some screws in there quite quickly to hold it all in place. Now if you push it in a little bit, you shouldn't hear any clicking because the click from the mechanism has already attached itself, so that's great. So before we start plugging in the power cables, which may make this come a little bit looser, we're going to actually attach our screws into the back there to hold the GPU in place. So now we're going to get our screws that hold the graphics card in place, and what you probably want to do is to just hold your graphics card up slightly so that you can clearly see the holes through the actual PCI Express backplate. Just do a couple of screws, don't do it up all the way, just get 1 screw in to get started with, and then you can take your second screw and get that one as well. And then what you want to do is, when they're both in, just give it a little bit of adjustment, maybe lift it up very slightly, and then you can tighten up the screws. Don't over tighten them, just do it so there's a snug fit and that your graphics card doesn't move. So that is that part done. Also, for this instance, we need to now reinsert our PCI Express blanking plate, which just pushes into place. And then we can use our final screw to hold that in. So you can hold the PCI Express blanking plate in place, use your screwdriver, just do that up to make it firm. Again, on this case, yours may be different, but this cover goes over the back there, and also we've got the 2 thumb screws which we took out earlier. You just hold that in place while you get 1 screw attached, and then that should give you enough to work on to get the second one in. Doesn't have to be overly tight. It's generally just a cover just to make this look a little bit neater. So now we're ready to plug in our power. So again, we've got two connections on this side. So two PCI Express 8-pin sockets. So from our power supply, we're going to take this one here. Just make sure that these are attached firmly. And depending on which way up is this one is tags on top. So push in and support the graphics card and just make sure that locks in nicely. Then we can take our second cable. Sometimes these will have a pigtail on them. If you've got individual cables, that is ideal. If you have to use a pigtail, you can do, just bend them around and connect up like that. But we're not going to do that on this one. So just plug in your power supply connections. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get it in. Just make sure it's pushed in firmly all the way in. And when that's done, it should look a little something like that. So there's a nice little close-up for you. Just make sure there's no gaps and that they are both firmly seated. Now at this point that is done. That should work as it is. Potentially if you want to maybe do some cable management, tidy these up a little bit. I'm actually going to break off now from filming it. I'm going to just quickly tweak the cable management there. There is actually another hole further along this particular motherboard, so we can take the cables in a little bit straighter rather than having them stretched across. You don't necessarily need to do that, but potentially if you want to, that is entirely up to you. Okay, so there we go. We've done a little bit of cable management. Also, you may find if you've got a particularly long graphics card and it's starting to sag, you can pick up anti-sag brackets, or potentially you can 3D print your own or purchase them from Amazon, place like that. So I've just got this one which I 3D printed a little while ago. So you can put that on your graphics card just to support it, just so you've got a relatively straight line there. This one still does look like it's sagging very slightly, so don't push it up too hard, but just try to make it so it doesn't look like it's completely sagging. If I remove this now, you'll see that there is there's quite a bit of sag on there. It is a big chunky graphics card. Now depending on the graphics card you're using, you may not experience that, but certainly I will put some links in the video description, so if you want to pick up some GPU support brackets, I'll try and put a selection in there, or at least a link to Amazon where it goes through various potential ones you can get. They come in different colors as well, so if you've got a white GPU, you can get a white one, silver, etc, etc. But anyway, that's done now, so let's get this connected back up and we'll go back onto the internet and get the new drivers installed. Okay, so we've got the computer turned back on, and I would suggest the first thing to do is to do absolutely nothing. Potentially you can go into Windows Updates if you want to get Windows to actually install the baseline driver for your particular graphics card. Now this has been on for a couple of minutes now, so if we go into Device Manager and just see what is actually installed in our display adapter. So it already says here we've got the AMD Radeon RX 6800. And if we want to, we can actually check out the properties of that and see which driver versions we've got, etc. So currently that is using a pretty old one from 2021, so that is not great. It's working, we've got the right resolution, so that's absolutely fine, but ideally you don't want to leave it in that particular situation. So depending on your graphics card, obviously if it's an AMD one, go to amd.com. If it's an Nvidia, go to nvidia.com. If it's Intel, go to intel.com. I'll try and put links for all of these in the video descriptions for you. But for this one, we want the Radeon drivers, so just go to amd.com, then go to the support section, so resources and support. Then you can go to the driver section. Again, links will be in the video description. And essentially what's going to do is ask you what sort of graphics card you've got. So actually if we go backwards, so this is the main page. So you can either do the auto install if you wanted to, that's absolutely fine, or you can browse manually. So if you change the graphics, in this case is a Radeon RX 6800, so we'll go for the 6000 series and just find your particular GPU in here. If you've got a graphics card which is actually from another manufacturer or come from an OEM, potentially you might need to go to their site, but these drivers should be fine. So click on submit, and it'll give you a list of drivers. Obviously choose the one appropriate for your version of Windows, so whether you're on Windows 10 or Windows 11, maybe Windows 7, but anyway, possibly even one of these Linux versions, but we're on Windows 11 64-bit, so you've got the option for the auto detected installer, which is only a small download, or you can just install the Adrenaline version of your choosing. So you've got options here. So we've got 2561, so that is the WHQL recommended, so that's the Windows Hardware Qualification Labs, so that is actually recommended by both Microsoft and also AMD. But if you want the optional version, there's a slightly newer one there, so that's 2563. So I would go for the WHQL version personally. So you can download that, click on download, and it will save it to your downloads folder. If we go actually to our downloads folder now, and what we can do is actually just run the installer, because I've already got it started anyway. So we can start that, so double click on it. It'll take a little while to unpack because it's almost a gig in size. And you'll get the user account control. Obviously this will be the same if you're doing Nvidia, AMD, Intel, etc. They'll all have their own installers. We have actually done individual installer videos for each of these graphics card manufacturers. So again, I'll try and link those in the description as well should you need them, but I think you should be able to follow along pretty easily with this. So as we can see here, so it's found our graphics card, got additional options here. If you are going from AMD to AMD, you might want to choose the factory reset option, but we're absolutely fine. And also you can choose either default installation, minimal, or driver only. So if you don't want all of the extra features, you can just go for driver only. Most people, I think, would be better off with default, so you get the adrenaline control center, etc. Also, you've got the options here for allowing AMD to collect information, blah, blah, blah. If you want to do that, it's entirely up to you. You can also do custom install. So you've got the option for the chipset drivers, which can be updated if you've got an AMD platform, and also the AMD privacy view. So I've actually got an AMD system, so I'm going to actually update the chipset drivers whilst I'm at it, but you can choose not to update if your system is fine. So I'm going to do that, click accept and install, and basically that is kind of it. So we're just going to let it do its own thing. It's going to download the required drivers, any additional installs it needs for the chipset, etc. And that is kind of it. And what you can do with that, so the Unigine Heaven benchmark, you can download it and just get a benchmark on your system, make sure it's stable, all that kind of stuff. And you can also use Google, get your result, compare it with others online just to make sure that it's kind of performing as it should do. There are other options, 3D Mark, Furmark, etc. But Unigine Heaven for me is a small download and it's quite useful for testing. So that is it. Then there it says a restart is required to complete the installation of the additional AMD software. So that'll be for the chipset drivers. It's probably worth rebooting the system after you've done this anyway. But for us, that is pretty much it. You also got the option to keep AMD software up to date. So this will actually leave an AMD installer running in the background. So when there is a new update for the graphics drivers or for the chipset, if you've got an AMD chipset, it will update them for you, or at least notify you that they are actually available. Okay, so there we go. That is how to install a graphics card. And now we've got our Intel Arc taken out, we've got our AMD graphics card put in, and yeah, hopefully all will be well. And hopefully now I can sell this PC, because for some reason people weren't interested in the Intel Arc. Don't know why. Anyway, there you go. Hopefully this video has been useful to you. As always, if there's any comments, please leave them in the comments section below. Alternatively, if you want to get in touch a little bit quicker, you can either drop us an email, or ideally go over to our Discord and you can contact us directly there, or any of the other tech support chaps and chapesses. Yeah, I think that's going to pretty much wrap this video up. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, smash the like button. If you want to see more content like this on a daily basis, maybe consider hitting subscribe. That way you'll be notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.